Hello, my name is Josephine if you are new here, and if you're not new, thank you so much for coming back. This week's video is a little bit different to how I usually film. I'm using this desktop style as I've seen quite a few creators like Mickey Galvin and other people filming in this way. I think it's a really cool way to film a video. I think it lends itself quite well to the topic of this week's video, or rather the way that I'd like to engage with this video. So I would really like to talk about Grok AI, but I would like to look at everything that's gone on with that through the lens of data ecofeminism. If you're interested, keep watching and be sure to like and subscribe. So as I said, I wanted to talk about Grok AI through the lens of data ecofeminism. This video has three key strands that I hope that I'll be able to weave together. I guess the first and most important place to start is talking about Grok AI and what that is, what's happened with it. But before I get into all of that, I also have written about this on my Substack, which I will put on screen and I will link below in the comments. If you are someone who prefers reading, then I would invite you to read that article. A couple of things to note. So Grok AI is a chatbot. It is the chatbot that is part of X, which was formerly Twitter. It is also the chatbot of Elon Musk's AI company, XAI. Recently, not that recently right now at the time of filming this, but in the past month, a researcher was able to quantify the scale at which people were using Grok to create deepfake content of women and also of children as well. After this research came out, there was a public outcry from mainly women's rights campaign groups seeking to have Grok be removed, or to have Twitter removed, or to have this aspect of its code not be available to users. At one point, I believe that X made it so that only people who paid for the service were able to use it in that way, which is just not really a solution to the problem at all. But at the moment, various different governments around the globe are looking into X and the idea of potentially banning it. So Indonesia and Malaysia did ban it. I believe Malaysia has unbanned it. I know that in France, Germany, Australia as well, they are currently looking into X to see if it is a platform that is viable to exist in their countries. Here in the UK, our watchdog Ofcom is investigating the platform of X. As I'm filming this video, that investigation is ongoing. So that's a little bit of context about Grok AI and why it's been in the news and in the media most recently. I feel like the platform is kind of always in the news for some reason or other. Elon Musk is always in the news for something. But at the moment, that is the reason that people are talking about Grok and X. So now that we've kind of looked at the context of this whole issue, I wanted to talk about data ecofeminism. And it's, I suppose, necessary to define what data ecofeminism is. That's not possible to do without breaking down the term into its two composite parts, which are the concept of data feminism and ecofeminism. So first, data feminism is a term that was coined in a book that came out titled Data Feminism. It came out in 2020, I believe. I'll put it on screen and link it below. This book essentially aims to look at data and computer sciences through an intersectional and decolonial feminist lens. This is a book that I really recommend. I think that it does an incredible job of presenting an overview, or rather the arguments for having this feminist approach to data and computer sciences. And then the other part of this data ecofeminism theory is naturally ecofeminism. So ecofeminism is a term that was first coined and theorised in the 1970s. This was off the back of a lot of feminist movements that were happening all over the world, and also the civil rights movement. Ecofeminism essentially aims to look at the joint ways in which women and nature are oppressed through the same systemic forces. These are forces such as capitalism, colonialism, imperialism, and it looks at questions of undervalued labour, for example, as an ecofeminist issue. I think when you bring these two concepts together, it begins to become really clear why this case of Grok AI is a data ecofeminist issue. The paper that actually coined the term data ecofeminism came out in 2025, and that paper actually takes a look more so at the proliferation of generative artificial intelligence And that also presents principles for how we might engage with big data and generative AI technologies in a way that is rooted in ecofeminist principles and ideas. It presents 7 principles, much like the book Data Feminism does. It also looks at how we're powering the AI revolution, which I think is a really necessary point to land on when we're thinking about the Grok AI case. The reason I think that this is a data ecofeminist issue, as opposed to potentially a data feminist issue or an ecofeminist issue or just a standard intersectional feminist issue, is because it really sits at the nexus of 2 problematic forces. On the one hand, you have this subjugation of women, this violence, this oppression in the digital space, taking the consent and autonomy away from women who've posted images of themselves on the internet and having the context of those images changed. You have that. But then on the other hand, you also have artificial intelligence being used in a way that is extremely bad for the planet, it's extremely bad for the environment. A lot of environmental activists have been really asking us to look at how much it costs to use and engage with AI. Elon Musk's AI company especially has come under fire from environmental activists because it is alleged that they do not have the proper licenses to use the gas turbines that they are using in their data center, which has the potential to lead to really poor air quality in a region that already suffers from very poor air quality. That area is also highly racialized. So this really does become an intersectional data ecofeminist issue when you add that element to it. This case, especially to me, highlights why we can't be compartmentalizing issues into one sort of discipline or field or looking at them through one singular lens. Data ecofeminism is, I think, a very important conceptual framework because it allows us to look at all of the composite parts, such as the data, the environment, the feminism, all of these things coming together. It's a really, in my opinion, important way to view contemporary issues. And the last thing I wanted to touch on was the idea of the fugitive, or rather fugitive feminism. So fugitive feminism, I think I mentioned before, is from this book, Fugitive Feminism. I've read this quite a few times and I think it's such an important piece of work. One of my main takeaways from this book was the idea of attempting to be free in a world that might not necessarily see you as human. The book talks about this idea of the non-human other. And I was thinking a lot about how our digital selves are a non-human other that is not yet protected by our realised laws or legislations because it's a digital. Quite a bit of the discourse that I was seeing online about this issue was people not necessarily understanding why it was an issue. People seem to understand that when an explicit image of you is taken and then shared around without your consent, I think people understand that to be revenge porn. But there was quite a lot of people that I saw who didn't seem to get that using AI to make explicit content of a person is a form of violation. I was quite surprised by people not getting that, but I think the idea that it's not real or that it's not really you, it's a digital version of self, I was seeing people just not grasp that that is still, an infringement on your rights. But it's because it's not you in a sense. It's a digital you. It's a digital subject, a digital clone, almost like a digital doppelganger or something. And I think that's where this idea of the fugitive feminism can be really relevant. That non-human other that is not seen as human and therefore not worthy of rights and acceptance and protection. Of course, this book talks about this in the context of Black and racialised women, but I think it's still a necessary thing to consider. This is also something that Laura Bates' most recent book touches on quite a bit. The book, The New Age of Sexism, it looks at the AI revolution and how it's reinventing and reshaping misogyny. Something that the book talks about a lot is how women in the metaverse were experiencing violence. And again, that's a non-human other. It's a being that is not real, but it's not as if the violences and the fear are not felt by the individual who is being represented in the digital. I think that the fugitive feminism also offers something really useful because it kind of predicts what I imagine will happen next, and that is that people will no longer feel safe online. people will remove themselves from the digital. When you don't feel safe in the digital, why would you exist there? I think people are going to run away from that space. And it's such a shame, because the digital online world is a place where a lot of people found freedom and safety when their real lives, their in-person lives, are quite challenging, whether that's because they're isolated from communities or they haven't found their own sorts of people nearer where they live. I think it's such a shame that people will likely start to move away from the digital space. It leaves you with no place to hide. If you can't be safe in the real world and you can't be safe online, that's a really scary place that we're ending up. I don't have a solution. I really don't. But I really felt that this is something that presents an opportunity to engage with the concept of data ecofeminism and look at fugitive feminism in a new way. I think that these are both really vital conceptual frameworks at which we can view contemporary issues through. As technology continues to develop and change, I think we need to think of new ways to look at these technologies and ask critical questions, such as who is this harming, who is it helping, who benefits from these types of oppressions, and all of these things. How is this impacting our planet? I hope that if you've watched this video, you found some kind of value from it. I will leave a link below I'll leave a list below of the books that I've read that have kind of helped me shape this idea, this video, and if I can find any campaign groups that specifically address these issues, I will also put those down below. If you did enjoy this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to my channel. I'm hoping to do a lot more video essays. There's a lot of things that I'm working on at the moment, especially as a research assistant, that I think would be really interesting to do video essays about. And also be sure to subscribe to my Substack. It is free and I discuss issues related to data justice, climate justice, biodiversity loss, and more recently a lot of contemporary feminist issues, specifically ecofeminist issues. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.